Nintendo has shown the world its new console, and it's a real scam. Players have been waiting for years for a new console from Nintendo and expected it to be something incredible, something that would be a completely new product that would completely turn the gaming market upside down. However, Nintendo surprised everyone by offering literally just a couple of questionable upgrades, while asking players for a whole $450 for a new console and raising the price of physical copies for games to 90 euros. So what exactly is Nintendo offering for that money? With the same size as the original Nintendo Switch, the new console gets a bigger screen. This new screen also features a higher resolution, replacing the old 720p with 1080p and 120Hz. But the most surprising thing is the dock, which now allows you to output a video to a TV with support for 4K at 60Hz. Of course, it's obvious that there won't be many games where this actually works. It's also clear that this isn't native 4K because even PlayStation 5, which is several times bigger, isn't able to produce native 4K graphics. It just upscales from 2K resolution. But still, the fact that this feature is here and that there will be some games where it does work, that's already a nice touch. It's obvious that Nintendo will optimize some of its most basic and popular games for this mode, and they really will look better. Overall, if you have played on the original Switch before, you already know that even those old games looked good on big TVs. Just to show you how serious the developers are, the dock now has a built-in cooling system, roughly the size of a laptop, just so your device doesn't burn out under the load. Also, the console itself now boasts not one, but two USB-C ports. This was done so you can charge the console and also plug in some external device at the same time, for example, a camera. The new console will come with a 250GB of storage, which is a full 8 times more than the previous console. One more interesting feature is that the console now has an in-game voice chat. Now, right in the middle of the game, you'll be able to connect with your friends through an app that very suspiciously looks like Discord. The microphone is built right into the console itself, and according to the developers, even if you're playing on a TV and the console is several meters away from you, your voice will still be picked up just fine. Even if there's background noise, a noise cancellation filter is supposed to help. Honestly, I have a hard time imagining this working properly. I really doubt they managed to squeeze a high-quality mic into such a small space. The one that can pick up sound from a distance and still work well with noise cancellation. Also, inside the voice chat app, you'll be able to share your screen and watch your friends' screens in real time while you're gaming. To be honest, I have absolutely no idea why this function even exists. It feels like it was added just to say, look at what we can do. But in practice, who is actually going to use it and why is a mystery to me, especially considering the fact that the shared screen video from your friends runs at like 5 to 10 FPS. You could clearly see this during the presentation and just how lagging choppy the video was. But that's not all. In addition to the console, you'll be also able to buy this little camera, which lets you stream your face in the in-game voice chat and show yourself to your friends. This is also a really weird and funny decision, especially considering the fact that the image quality is absolutely terrible. It's super blurry with horribly cut out backgrounds, and you have to understand, the footage they showed during the presentation, all those people were being filmed in a professional studio with special lighting set up specifically to make the quality as good as possible. And even with all of that, it still looked pretty bad. So yeah, as you have probably figured out, this specific new feature didn't impress me at all. I honestly think that voice chat would have been more than enough. Loading up an already not so powerful console with extra stuff like screen sharing, live video feeds of your friends' faces, and so on, to me that feels really unnecessary, and I doubt many people will actually use it. But there's one small detail to all of this. In order to use all of the features of the in-game voice chat, you'll need to buy a Nintendo Switch Online membership. This is a special subscription for which you have to pay money. However, the developers did throw players a bone and made it possible to use this feature for free during the first year. I think you get what's happening here. They clearly want to hook the audience first, let people get used to this voice chat, maybe even find it convenient, and then all of a sudden it becomes a paid feature, and those who've gotten used to it will be forced to buy the online membership. I doubt that one voice chat feature is enough to get people to buy a subscription, so they will probably have to stuff something else into it too, like maybe give away a few free games or strip away some other features and lock them behind the online paywall. On top of that, I think the whole thing is just kind of funny. I mean, literally anyone can just download Discord on their phone and talk to their friends during the game. And that's exactly what my friends' kids do. They are around 10-14 years old. And just when you think it couldn't get any worse, Nintendo managed to take a step further. The issue is that this entire voice chat system and all the extra features tied to the paid subscription are activated through a special button, the one that's been added to both the console and the controller. And now, during the first year when the subscription is free, no one's really going to question it. But after a year, when some players choose not to pay for the online membership and just want to play their games normally, they will suddenly realize that they now have a literally paid button on their console, a button that simply won't work unless they pay up. In other words, Nintendo is so confident that you'll buy into their subscription and all the stuff they're trying to make you swallow that they went ahead and added a physical paid button to the device. Honestly, I'm still in shock. It's just insane how brazen Nintendo has become, and it's not even like they tried to hide it. Like, if the button was hidden somewhere on the back of the console or made small and subtle, I could kind of get it. But no, they've placed it right on the front of the controller in a pretty visible spot, which to me is just a super questionable design decision. And yes, the Joy-Con controllers themselves have been improved. Some buttons have been made bigger for better comfort, and now the controller attaches to the screen thanks to magnets. But all of these pales in comparison to what the developers of Nintendo Switch have invented. They've invented a computer mouse. Now, each individual controller can be used as a mouse. This means you can literally pick it up in your hand like a computer mouse and control the gameplay in more convenient, familiar way for PC users. And the developers chose a rather amusing way to demonstrate this feature. The first game they showed off was a classic first-person shooter called Metroid Prime. And there's no question here, truly in the computer mouse format, any shooter is far easier to control than with a classic controller. But then the developers showed the second game where at first there was no clear gameplay and some strange hand movements were happening. In that moment you might have thought they were going to show us a realistic racing game or a simulator of skiing. Well, you were almost right. They showed us a basketball simulator for people in wheelchairs. On the positive side, thanks to the presence of wheels, you can do some cool tricks. But honestly, I'm not sure who's going to be interested in that. One of the first and probably most sold exclusives is Mario Kart World. And while the game looks like an updated version of previous one, it is actually a full-fledged open world you can explore. There are various biomes and activities, the time of day changes, and dynamic weather has been added. Nintendo also showed a tech demo game, something like Astro's Playroom. It's an educational game that familiarizes you with the main functions and controls of the gaming console. It looks pretty good. I even got excited at first because it seemed like the developers truly care about teaching players how to interact with their device properly. But Nintendo went ahead and showed their absolutely abnormal greed by stating that the game would be paid. Nintendo seriously wants your money for a tutorial that teaches you how to use their console that you already paid money for. Have you completely lost your mind? This move alone shows how much Nintendo has become brazen and how they have no competition, monetizing everything from the paid voice chatting games to the terrible quality of the webcam, and now even a paid tutorial for their own console. But fortunately, the presentation didn't end with children's games. Nintendo showed that now, on the new consoles, big PC releases will be available as well. Among them are Elden Ring, Street Fighter 6, Split Fiction, Hogwarts Legacy, Hitman World of Assassination, Borderlands 4, Civilization 7, Final Fantasy 7, and Cyberpunk 2077, along with a bunch of anime games which I didn't remember because I'm not a fan of that genre. And looking at all of this, I got a strong impression that Nintendo is deliberately trying to expand the average age of their players. If before Nintendo Switch was considered more casual, family-friendly, or party-oriented gaming console, now it has added some of the biggest releases in the gaming industry in recent years. And earlier, if Gabe said that they had no competition with Nintendo and that their consoles were completely different because Nintendo Switch was more of a light, child-oriented gaming device, or one meant for social time, the Steam Deck in his eyes was the more serious console, providing an alternative to PC gaming in portable form. Now it doesn't look that clear anymore. It seems like Nintendo Switch is consciously moving into the world of big games and will compete directly with Steam Deck. If before anyone who had a Switch had the motivation to move to PC or bigger consoles because there were games they couldn't play on the Switch, now they don't need to do that anymore because now Nintendo Switch offers all options. You don't need to buy a separate console to play Elden Ring, Cyberpunk or Borderlands. However, even if Nintendo has these ambitions, they are absolutely unfounded. The thing is, it's completely unclear who would want to play these games on the Nintendo Switch. Why would anyone in their right mind choose a downgraded, blurry version of a game that they could play in its full version on a PC or any other console? Also, it could be bought cheaper on PC because of various discounts. I'm not sure that's the case with Nintendo. As you have already realized, they like to milk their audience for for all it's worth. I'm not even mentioning the Steam Deck, which is cheaper, more powerful, and fully compatible with the Steam library. Meaning if you have Cyberpunk on Steam on your PC, you can play it for free on your Steam Deck. As for kids and Switch fans, I'm not sure if they're interested in such games because they bought Nintendo consoles precisely for Nintendo's exclusive games. But Nintendo went further and announced something that made a lot of Souls-like fans furious. They showed a game called Duskbloods, which looks literally like the long-awaited Bloodborne 2, and many Miyazaki fans were really upset, posting all sorts of nasty things on Twitter. Honestly, I don't understand what the problem is. It's obvious that Nintendo paid a lot of money to get exclusivity for this project, and they'll try to attract new players to their console. First of all, I don't think this is going to be some great game that everyone will urgently need to go out and buy a console for. Most likely it will be just another Dark Souls copy-paste, and there's no guarantee that it will be even a permanent exclusive, because as we know, Sony has released all of its exclusives on PC. The developers also demonstrated new memory expansion cards, and aside from the improved file transfer speed, you won't be able to use cards from the old console on the new one. I'm sure there's some rational explanation for this, maybe they don't meet certain standards or something else, but anyway, if you haven't figured it out yet, Nintendo really needs your money, and you'll have to pay a lot and often. However, the main feature of the Nintendo Switch has always been, and still is, the games. That's why it remains one of the most popular portable consoles in the world. And here the developers showed a lot of interesting things. On the Nintendo Switch 2 you'll be able to play 3 types of games. The first type is games that were specifically developed for the new console. These games will boast improved graphics and performance, and in general they can be called new games. The second type is games from the old console, which thanks to backward compatibility, you'll be able to play on the new one. It would have been strange if this wasn't the case. And the third type is the most interesting. Old games from the first Switch, but with an upgraded version available. This version will include new features, gameplay additions, and game modes. And of course, if you already have a copy of a game that you bought for the old console, you will have to buy an upgrade for your game, for which you'll have to pay money. I couldn't find out how much the upgrade for old games will cost, but you know, in any case, reasonable developers release upgrades for paid games for free. No one in their right mind asks for money for that. And yes, I know that developers on PS5 also practice that, but I don't think it's acceptable. And apparently the developers of Nintendo Switch 2 are so confident in their audience that they know they will swallow it all and buy the upgrades anyway. Also, updated versions of both parts of Zelda series will be available. Players will have access to a version with improved resolution as well as higher frame rates. HDR support will be also available. But as it's later turned out, the updated version only involves increased resolution and higher frame rates. So there won't be anything new, no new textures, no additional quests or DLCs. You're literally paying for the resolution and FPS bump. Just don't tell Nintendo fans that in any PC game you can do that for free just by entering settings. I know it's hard to believe. Also, I was really amused by the new app called Zelda Notes, which will be available in the Nintendo Switch app. The feature is that it's literally a mobile app with a map of your game world, and by marking the point where you need to go, you'll be able to use a voice assistant to guide you to that point. As I understand, this is just incredible technology, and video games will never be the same again. But if we are being serious, it's just the most pointless feature I have ever seen. Fine if it was built into the console itself, but for this you need a phone with a separate app that you need to download. Anyway, the release date of the new console is June 5, 2025. The biggest problem remains that it's not entirely clear what the strategy Nintendo has chosen. In my opinion, the main feature of this console was supposed to be the exclusive games, which were simple, fun, and perfectly helped kill time. Now, as we can see, there weren't really any new games shown. We got literally 2.5 updated games from the previous generation and a few older games, but at the same time there's a whole list of games from old consoles that are not backwards compatible. On the other hand, it seems like Nintendo has chosen a completely different strategy. They have placed a huge emphasis on the large games ported from other platforms, but the thing is, this approach has a lot of downsides, starting from the fact that these games look simply worse on Nintendo. So what's the point for players to buy these games on Nintendo if they can get them on any other platform, probably cheaper, and secondly with better performance and graphics? And again, I'm not even mentioning the Steam Deck, on which you can play games for free if you already have them on Steam. Overall, I must admit that the Nintendo Switch as a gaming console doesn't really appeal to me. What interests me more is the fact of its presentation and Nintendo's influence on the rest of the gaming market. It's clear that if they succeed with this idea of raising prices for kids games, other developers will start to consider it. Let's be honest, today's case, Nintendo doesn't seem like a developer company that wants to bring you joy. It looks more like something that tries to squeeze every penny from you, selling you every device, every cable for additional dollar. And yes, these are the realities of modern business, because profits need to keep growing so that investors continue to invest money. Honestly, I don't know who plays this. None of my friends play Nintendo games. There are probably fans of it and I don't judge them. But for me, if you have access to any other gaming platform, the Nintendo Switch is simply unnecessary.